Hello everyone, you have come to Tata Comic Preview channel. Let read together. Have fun. This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. Boom. 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 Under the assault of the Fiend Extermination Alliance disciples, Duanmu Shang retreated. He looked in the direction of the evil sky pavilion while noting the numbness of his arms. He was not alone in this. The disciples of the 7 great sects looked at the evil sky pavilion as well. Someone was shooting arrows from the shadows. It was not as simple as the arrow that had killed Zhou Yuan. The arrow that killed Lu Rushi was much smaller. Lu Rushi did not even have a chance to unleash his skills. How could the disciples not be terrified? A cloud of panic seemed to descend on the 7 great sections. They were still stumped by this baffling turn of events when an energy arrow as thick as a tree trunk shining with a golden light shot out. It was glowing so brightly that it was difficult not to notice it. Whiz. The arrow's speed was so fast that its noise was extraordinarily loud. Our turn. A powerful archer had to use his own hiding spot well while figuring out where the enemy's archers were. It was easy for an archer to expose his own position. The energy arrow that was as thick as a tree trunk seemed to carry the hopes of the 7 great sects with it. From the westernmost part of the forest, it sailed toward the evil sky pavilion in the east. Everyone's eyes were trained on that energy arrow. The dark area in the evil sky pavilion was instantly illuminated by this enormous energy arrow. At this moment, they thought they saw the figure of an old man standing casually before the pavilion. The old man raised his wizened hand that glowed blue as though he was wearing a blue glove. Capture hand seal. Boom. Sparks flew as though someone had set off fireworks. The energy arrow was caught by the old man and soon vanished. Old villain G. It's the old villain. He's the one who fired that arrow. Stand back. The 7 flying chariots retreated. Their disciples retreated as well. If they could put more distance between them, the impact of the energy arrows would lessen as well. However, this move shook the morale of their side. Many of the 7 great sects disciples were frightened and fell to the ground due to their legs weakening. In fact, many of them who joined this assault had done so in the heat of the moment. They only realized how terrifying the evil sky pavilion was now that they were on the battlefield. Let alone old villain G, just these few people were enough to intimidate the 7 great sects. Greetings, Pavilion Master. Greetings, Master. The voices of the evil sky pavilion's members greeted Lu Zhou in thunderously loud voices. Lu Zhou nodded and stroked his beard. His eyes were fixed on the forest far beyond the 7 great sections. He projected his voice. Ji Yuancheng, why are you hiding? Since when did you become such a coward? Clearly, this question was not directed toward the 7 great sects. Ji Yuancheng was an old godly archer who was closest to his great limit. He did not affiliate with any sect for the longest time and produced many outstanding disciples in the past. The leader of the divine capital's 3 godly archers, Chen Zhu, was only a disciple of his disciple. As a godly archer, it was impossible for Hua Yuesheng to not know the name Ji Yuancheng. She stared at the dark forest with a shocked expression. Feng Qinghe replied in Ji Yuancheng's stead, Old Senior Ji is a godly archer, it's par for course that he doesn't show himself. Old villain Ji, aren't you hiding as well? Then, I shall show myself. Lu Zhou stroked his beard as he stepped forward on air. He slowly emerged from the darkness before the evil sky pavilion. With every step he took, a radiant circle would appear. He walked with ease and composure. A few dark strands of his hair glinted in the moonlight among his white-silver hair. Under this circumstance, Lu Zhou's appearance seemed like an exact copy of Ji Tiandao when he had just transmigrated here. The disciples of the 7 great sects inhaled deeply. Their eyes were wide open as they stared at Lu Zhou in the sky. Although they could not see his face, Based on his long robes, white hair, and the attitude of the members of the Evil Sky Pavilion, they were certain the old man was the master of the Evil Sky Pavilion, the all-powerful great villain who dominated the world under the heavens. Zhou gauged his remaining extraordinary power. The first arrow that killed Zhu Yuan had used up 1/5 of his power. Zhu Yuan was a dying man to begin with. The arrow merely expedited his death. The second arrow that killed Lu Rushi, the sect master of the Core Heart sect, used 1/3 of the heavenly writing's extraordinary power. Lu Rushi was a formidable opponent, after all. Then, he had used up 1/3 of his extraordinary power to catch Ji Yuancheng's arrow. In other words, he was left with slightly less than 1/3 of his extraordinary power. For this reason, he decided to reveal himself. With this, he would probably be able to lure all his enemies out into the open. Just as Lu Zhou had expected, Ji Yuancheng could not restrain himself when he heard Lu Zhou's words. He hovered above the forest and loudly said, "Old villain. You killed my disciple's disciple. I'll end you with my own hands this very night." Ji Yuancheng, a powerful individual who had lived for several centuries, raised his bow and arrow. Chen Zhu was from the other tribe, San. "Are you fighting for another tribesman?" "Nonsense. I can definitely tell if he was an other tribesman or not." Lu Zhou shook his head. He completely ignored the leaders of the 7 great sects before him. He stepped forward and said indifferently, "I thought you'd be a reasonable man since you're the patriarch of the godly archers." Alas. Lu Zhou flipped his right palm. A mini vortex appeared above it. There was a surge of primal chi that the 7 great sects clearly felt. They retreated at once. "Fall back. Fall back now." The disciples of the 7 great sects were scared out of their wits by this. "Stand your ground. We will succeed in this battle or die trying. Defectors shall be persecuted and killed." With that statement, the disciples of the 7 great sects were cowed. They reluctantly stayed put. Could they fall back now? Of course not. This is our last chance before his great limit. Anyone who steps back will be cut down. Feng Qinghe's voice was laced with his expansive heavenly energy. It stabilized the mental states of the disciples. Yes, this was their last chance since the old villain's great limit was approaching. They were already so far in, could they really back out now? Meanwhile, Lu Zhou moved his hand and tossed the vortex out. The great seal of fearlessness. There was nothing within sight that was to be feared. The shining golden seal shot toward Ji Yuancheng at a swift speed. Ji Yuancheng cried out and knocked an energy arrow. This scene was reminiscent of Chenju, who did his best to resist at Measure Heaven River. The disciple's disciple and the master were similar. He grew stronger as his opponent was stronger, and he would kill a god if he was facing a god. Bam. 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 Several energy arrows hit the hand seal and merely caused a weak ripple on its surface. It did nothing to slow its advance. The hand seal sailed past between 2 flying chariots. Swoosh. 1/3 of both flying chariots were damaged by the great seal of fearlessness. Dozens of disciples who did not know how to fly fell to the ground. Loud resounding wails rang in the air. The great seal of fearlessness shot past the flying chariot and continued to sail toward Ji Yuancheng. At this moment, Ji Yuancheng finally realized something was amiss. He immediately flew into the distance as if his life depended on it. The great seal of fearlessness seemed to have eyes of its own. It struck Ji Yuancheng's body at lightning speed. Smack! Ji Yuancheng disintegrated into ashes before they scattered in the air. The forest was quiet as a graveyard now. The disciples of the 7 great sects lost all ability to think and breathe. The confidence and morale that Feng Qinghe had so roused with great difficulty were shaken again. Under such circumstances, was it possible for one to maintain their composure? This was a deadly strike card. Lu Zhou did not even consider the cost. He had to take out this elite who could fire arrows from the shadows, no matter the cost. Lu Zhou stepped forward again. Feng Qinghe's gaze was sharp and cold, but his heart was racing. His scalp prickled and turned numb. At this juncture, he had no other choice but to force himself to act. He said commandingly, "Disciples willing to sacrifice their lives for a good cause, charge." The cultivators around the 7 flying chariots swarmed toward Lu Zhou like flies. Master. Pavilion Master. On the Evil Sky Pavilion's side, Duanmu Shang and Little Yuan were the only ones who had been conserving their strength. Lang Luo was only left with enough energy to run away. When they saw this, they wanted to fend off the attackers. However, they could only stare at Lu Zhou helplessly at this moment. A ripple spread out with every step Lu Zhou took. A blue lotus emerged under his feet, and his body shone with a faint blue light. "Having lived a long life, I have slain 1,000,000 demons. They'll have to pay a heavy price for this even if they're from the 7 great sections." With a Tao transforming Divine Court realm cultivation base, none of the nascent divinity realm elites would have taken him seriously in the past. There was a saying in the cultivation world, those below the nascent divinity realm were maggots. Cultivators who had not entered the nascent divinity realm were destined to be minor characters. In any case, regardless of cultivations, since time immemorial, the strong had always looked down on the weak. For example, those in the Divine Court realm looked down on those in the Brahman Sea realm, those in the nascent divinity realm looked down on those in the Divine Court realm, and 5-leaf elites looked down on 4-leaf elites. However, on this day, everyone from the Evil Sky Pavilion and the 7 great sects did not dare to underestimate old villain Ji, who was only in the Divine Court realm. Many elites had tried to probe his cultivation base to find out if his cultivation base had deteriorated. They arrived at the conclusion that he was in the Divine Court realm. At this moment, Lu Zhou looked at the cultivators who were swarming toward him apathetically. The blue lotus under his feet and its shadow grew bigger and bigger. Then, the blue lotus blossomed. Its power spilled into the surroundings like a tidal wave. To gain the power to silence everything, to maintain and manifest samadhi. Like light and shadow, permeating everywhere while staying still in samadhi. When the blue lotus blossomed, the cultivators who were flying toward Lu Zhou were sent flying back. The members of the Evil Sky Pavilion widened their eyes in shock when they witnessed this scene. No matter how many times they watched Lu Zhou make a move, he never failed to broaden their horizons. Hua Wudao, Duanmu Shang, Zhao Yu, and Little Yuan found this scene rather. Previously, when Lu Zhou was cultivating in seclusion in the hidden chamber, they had attempted to break into the chamber. What they had seen then was rather similar to what they were seeing now. The only difference was the area of coverage and the power were much greater than before. Boom. 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 The disciples from the 7 great sects who were sent flying back spat out mouthfuls of blood. The tidal wave of power swept over the 7 flying chariots as well, causing them to shake violently before they crashed to the ground. At this moment, the members of the Evil Sky Pavilion realized that the power did not discriminate between friend and foe. Lang Luo, who was the most experienced among the lot, cried out, "Fall back." The members of the Evil Sky Pavilion retreated to a safe place in the air and continued to watch the battle. "What technique is this?" Hua Wudao mumbled. "I don't know," Lang Luo replied. "I don't know as well." Zhu Honggong replied as well, "Ow. Little junior sister, what did you pinch me?" Little Yuan pinched her own cheeks and said, "Oh, it's not a dream." At this moment, Lu Zhou had exhausted his heavenly writing's extraordinary power. The notifications of merit points kept ringing in his ears. One Divine Court realm cultivator was only worth 10 merit points. He felt it was too low. There was no reward for killing cultivators in the body tempering realm and below. There were too many of them. Nearly 70% of the cultivators from the 7 great sects, including a few nascent divinity tribulation realm elders, were taken down by the heavenly writing power. Nearly half these numbers were dead. Lu Zhou maintained flight in the air and looked down at the other from his high vantage point. He shook his head. He was quite dissatisfied with the heavenly writing power because he only killed roughly 30% of those people. There was nothing he could. After all, his attack only contained 10% of his extraordinary power. With that amount of power, it would be difficult for him to kill a slightly powerful nascent divinity tribulation realm cultivator, let alone extraordinary nascent divinity tribulation realm cultivators. In any case, although the attack was too weak for his liking, he managed to put on a great show and looked imposing. Well, as long as he looked good, the other matters were insignificant. At this moment, the surviving cultivators were retreating. The 9 elders of the Yuan'er sect were among those who were retreating. They were in great pain. Meanwhile, Ning Liang, the master of the Hanku branch master, Feng Qinghe, the master of the Zhensong branch, Jia Yuan, the master of 7 Stars Villa, Miao Yin, the abbess of Good Fortune Temple, and Shao Jinhan, the first disciple of Duanlin branch, maintained flight at a low altitude. Their hands were pressed against their chests as they looked at Lu Zhou in shock. He was too powerful. 5 of them clenched their fists and gulped. Without the protection of their flying chariots, they were in a disadvantageous position. Feng Qinghe gulped. He looked at Lu Zhou, who was looking down at them, unable to put his feelings into words. In truth, he did not expect Lu Zhou's earlier attack to do so much damage. He mustered up his courage as he took a deep breath. Now was not the time to nurse his injured ego. He tried to boost the others' morale. Stay calm. That must have been his original wide area seal technique. The Celestial Masters sect and Zhensong branch's seal eruption talismans can also do it. Although the 5 sect masters of the 5 sects survived and had yet to summon their avatars, their blood essence was roiling in their bodies due to the attack. They nearly spat out mouthfuls of blood themselves. At this moment, all 5 of them were trying to stabilize their breaths with their primal qi. The Duanlin branch's first disciple, Shao Jinhan, said, "Senior Feng, do you think we'll succeed?" Feng Qingyi glanced at him and said, "Believe me. In any case, we have no other way out." Pan Litian was powerful, but he was still taken down by our Zhensong branch. The others exchanged a glance and nodded, coming to a tacit agreement to become heroes standing atop the bones of their comrades. Miao Yin, the abbess of Good Fortune Temple, said, "Just as well. Who should descend to the depths of hell if not I? Disciples, heed my call." Miao Yin's disciples standing on the ground rose into the air immediately. Feng Qinghe gave her a thumbs up and said in a clear voice, "Listen up, everyone. Old villain Ji won't be able to last for long. This is his dying burst of power. Don't be afraid." All he needed to do was make sure the disciples from the 7 sects remained in position. Whether his claim was true or not was unimportant. Lu Zhou hovered in the air, trying to think of his next move. "I only have 2 deadly strike cards left. Fortunately, I have 1 peak card. Are the elites ever going to come out of their hiding places?" He did not use his peak card because the group of elites in hiding would immediately run away after seeing the peak card. He would not be able to track them down afterward. The disciples of the 7 great sects were baffled when they saw Ji Tiandao seemingly lost in thought while he hovered in the air. They had no idea what was going through his mind. At this moment, the disciples of Good Fortune Temple were in their positions. Dozens of nuns straightened their palms by their lips. Their voices droned on and on as they chanted. Lu Zhou shook his head. How futile. All skills were futile in the face of extreme power. He flipped his right palm. An item card materialized in his hand, Ji Tiandao's peak trial card. At this moment, there was a sudden flash of movement in the southeastern corner of the forest. A figure joined his palms and held a talisman between them. Then, he sailed through the air like a fired arrow. "Old villain Ji. Don't you dare lay your hands on my disciples." The Duanlin branch disciples exclaimed in shock. "Patriarch." Feng Qinghe was overjoyed. "Well done, Duanlin branch's patriarch. You finally made a move." Chang Yan's face was flushed, and his eyes were bloodshot. He was a man who was nearing his great limit, but his appearance seemed abnormal. It was clear he had taken the primal fiend potion. With the boost from the potion, he was now at the peak of his cultivation base. Everyone watched as Chang Yan attacked. In their opinion, Lu Zhou would be heavily injured if not die. Bam! The disciples of the 7 great sects looked on expectantly. Swoosh. A cone-shaped energy field appeared before Chang Yan's palms as he flew straight toward Lu Zhou. Lu Zhou paused as he looked at Chang Yan for a moment. Then, he shook his head and said, "Very well." He shattered the peak trial card in his wizened hand. The instant the peak card shattered, a spot of starlight shot out of his palm and swirled around his body. His weak divine court realm Dantian's sea of qi was instantly filled to the brim. Even his extraordinary 8 meridians were bursting with power. He knew the elites in hiding would not recklessly show themselves. In the end, he decided to use the peak card to clear the people before him. The appearance of Chang Yan, the patriarch of the Duanlin branch, was a welcome surprise. Ji Tiandao's power at his peak returned to Lu Zhou. In fact, his power seemed to have surpassed that of Ji Tiandao at this moment. "You want to die? I'll grant you your wish." Lu Zhou's expression remained calm as he raised his right hand that shone with a golden light in Chang Yan's direction. Bam!